We want to turn now to our CBS News chief medical correspondent, Dr. Jon LaPook. I covered the campaign of another outsider, Barack Obama. And in the second term of his presidency, in a meeting with reporters, we asked him one of the things that he took from the presidency that surprised him. He said, the thing that surprised me most, this is Barack Obama, is the convening authority of any president. He said, I assumed that I could get anyone to return my call, but until I actually saw it happen, I wasn't absolutely sure of it. What seems to me is important about former President Carter is that was true while he was president, of course. Maybe more true after he was president. He used that convening power of the aura of the United States, of his former presidency, to do good works in so many different places.
Yeah, and he sweated the details. You know, when Merck had this drug to treat river blindness, but they couldn't get it down to the last person, that last mile, he stepped in, said, let me help to do that. And at the end of the day, he was somebody who helped advance human rights, health equity, a huge champion for health equity. And when I think about him, having met him and spoken with him for about a half hour and seeing his whole career and what he did, I just think at the end of the day, he was a man with an enormous sense of decency.
And that sweating the details speaks to his fierceness. It wasn't just an act. He really cared about it and took that fierceness to the next and final step to make sure something he believed in got done.
Yeah, and it wasn't about him at the end of the day. He talked in his note to self, you know, you're going to meet some people who are very famous, but to the most emotional time when I spoke with him was talking about a woman who was, you know, in the village who nobody knew, who he helped cure of guinea worm. I mean, he got all choked up.
Doug Brinkley, I want to ask you this. I have had the pleasure of interviewing Americans for almost 30 years covering national politics. And they tell me, regardless of party, something pretty consistently. I want someone who knows what they believe in and why. And I want someone who will ignore the politics and do what they believe is right. And I want someone who will tell other people who are full of themselves to step off. Jimmy Carter did a lot of those things. He was a lot of those things. And yet, when he was in the act of doing them, he was, more often than not, far more unpopular than popular as president.
And just imagine he created today's Department of Education and Department of Energy, FEMA. We were talking about conservation in the national parks. He saved as much lands as California up in Alaska as wilderness and national monuments. The Panama Canal Treaty, Carter's...
Unpopular, but necessary.
Unpopular, but he did it because it was necessary at the time. He's the one who recognized the People's Republic of China. You know, he's the first president to go to Nigeria. As president, he denounced apartheid. So it's quite a one term. But what impresses me the most about the Carter Center, and I got to look at all of his private papers, was that as ex-president, almost weekly, he'd write world leaders getting reports from Amnesty International and Helsinki Watch and other human rights groups asking for particular prisoners to be released, political prisoners in Chile or El Salvador or Venezuela, and the list is long, and he'd get results. There are people that got released from jail because Carter wrote respectful letter to the president, El Presidente, or the dictator, but those people got their lives back, and it reminds us of those 444 days of Iran-Contra. Whatever you think of it, they came home, our 52 hostages at the end of the line, because he would not bomb Tehran.
You know, you're making me remember that I asked him at one point, do you ever just want to just reach across and just shake somebody and say, come on? And he was so honest, he said, yeah.
In a political disagreement, right.
Yeah, but he said, but that doesn't get you anywhere, and you really have to gain trust and try to get to where you want to get. That was a moment of such honesty, but then pragmatism.
Right, level-headed.
As Skylar Henry just said, former President Carter will lie in repose at the Carter Center in Atlanta for the next few days. Then, on Tuesday, Carter's remains will arrive in the nation's capital, where he will lie in state until Thursday. Then there will be a funeral at the Washington National Cathedral. After that, President Carter will leave D.C. one last time, heading back home to Plains. He will then be buried at his home alongside his wife, Rosalind. We will bring you all of those moments throughout the week.